Just a voice. So, do you guys just want to say your names and like a little bit about you, where you go to school, stuff like that?
Sure. My name is Ellie Sheldberg. I'm a junior at Eau Claire. I study political science and I have a legal emphasis and a philosophy minor. That's what I'm studying for.
Yeah.
That's cool. My name is Katie Oberdorf. I go to school at UWM Milwaukee. I study art, primarily sculpture, ceramics, and I'm also in my third year.
Nice. And yeah, I'm also a third year political science major. So thank you guys so much for doing this. The dialogue is going to be about the conflict in Israel and Palestine. And again, you guys might, once we get into the questions, conflict a little bit, but again, that's okay. That's what I'm here for, to just facilitate that. And I know that you both will be respectful. So yeah, we'll just get into it. So my first question is just like overall, what are your opinions about the conflict between Israel and Palestine? It's been over a year. And what do you think of the US specifically and what they've done in the conflict so far? What are your opinions on that?
Yeah, sure. Katie, you want to go first or you want me to?
You can start it off.
All right, for sure. So, what do I think of the US's involvement in the Israel-Palestine conflict? I think it makes sense politically just because of not only how much the US has been in support of Israel in the past, but also Biden is very pro Israel. So I think it makes sense in that aspect. However, I think that Israel has definitely taken the conflict a lot farther than it needed to go, especially considering how long they were occupying the Gaza Strip before that and just how much there's a lot of nuance in that conflict, and I 100% understand that. But I think Benjamin Netanyahu just kind of has a very anti-Palestinian agenda. However, I think there are two sides to war.
Sure. And then Katie?
Um, yeah, I definitely think I'm not surprised with the US's stance in anything regarding Palestine or Israel. They have made both sides of our parties have made themselves very clear where they stand. I fully support the liberation of Palestine. I think Israel has taken things way, way, way out of proportion. This is a mass genocide we're seeing, and it's frustrating to be sitting here not being able to do as much as I would like to for the people who are truly suffering.
For
So,
sure. And anything else about that? Just wanting to respond to each other at all?
Yeah, I agree, Katie. I think that the whole thing has been um, taken entirely too far. I think that the civilian deaths are an absolute tragedy in Palestine. And I think that the US, there have been kind of some NPR reports about, Biden being on the phone with Benjamin Netanyahu and saying, you need to stop, you need to dial it back, or we're going to stop supporting you. And so far, we haven't seen him carry that out. So I do think he needs to stand by his word in that.
yeah. No, I definitely agree with that. I wish he would have, but I think now, unfortunately, with our new president, um, I think it's gonna be a little frustrating to get any kind of resolvement because I don't think Donald Trump will want to come to a conclusion like that. Um, if I'm wrong, thank God. If I'm not, well, that's expected. So I definitely am frustrated, especially because I really don't think Trump is going to do anything at all. Whereas Biden, I guess, was trying, so to speak. But I knew going into the election and stuff that both sides probably weren't going to do what I wanted to help the people in Palestine. So it was just kind of realizing that. And trying to just focus on like things I can do personally and like how I can support and stuff.
Sure. And actually, what you guys are kind of getting at was another question that I have. Well, okay, there's like two questions on this, but I'll start on this because it's kind of what Katie had just mentioned. And that's, could Kamala Harris have done more to support Palestine during her campaign? Or do you think she said and did enough? And this is kind of just considering the results of the election, but just kind of before that, her stance.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about that. Yeah, I think Kamala Harris in her campaign, coming into it so late, she had, I think, an idea in her mind of playing more to the right, trying to get those independent but right-leaning people on her side and kind of neglecting the people on the left who really would have liked to see her take a stronger stance on the Israel-Palestine conflict. Um, I don't know that we could have necessarily expected anything else out of her just because it was such a short campaign. I mean, it makes sense pandering to independents. They decide elections, which I think is that's its own thing. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think Kamala probably should have taken a harder stance on it instead of just being in the middle. However, it's kind of expected.
Yeah,
No,
for
yeah,
sure.
absolutely. I think, yeah, the problem was is she was not given enough time. Joe Biden should have stepped down right away so that she could have gotten an actual chance. But I think what you said about her trying to appeal to the right is very true. I think she tried to play this like better conservative almost to kind of try and get some of these conservative people to switch. But in like while she was doing that, she lost a lot of the supporters she had. And a lot of the supporters she had were very upset at her stance. And just like her stance on a bunch of things, like again, her just trying to lean more to the right was not appealing to her audience. Like I definitely understand like the strategic like strategy, like I get it, but it was very unsuccessful. And I think she could have spent her time doing other things and better campaigning to kind of keep the younger voters on her side, as well as just trying to campaign more for what she really believed in. Because I had talked to this about my friend. Like, we never really got what she was as a person. Like, we never really understood who she was and like what she was standing for when she started like playing this like conservative role. So, like, it didn't make, I think, people feel confident in her. And that's why I thought a lot of people would vote for her, but as we saw, she didn't turn the numbers, which was
Yeah.
disappointing.
Yeah, and it actually wasn't even really that close, or at least
No, it
not as close
wasn't.
as I thought it would be. So
Oh,
definitely.
yeah.
Right. So do you guys think like because she had mentioned it a few times, just the wanting to create like a two-state solution, pushing for a ceasefire, do you think that was enough or she should have gone further? Like talking about that during debates and on the campaign trail or going further with that?
I think if she wanted to, it's so hard to say what she should have done. I mean,
Right.
ethically, morally, she probably should have, and also to get more of the left to vote for her or the center left. Um, she probably should have just stood on business and said what
Yeah.
Israel is doing is wrong, and I think that the U.S. should stop funding weapons to be used by Israel against Palestinians. Yeah, we've been like sending food, I think, but I think the food just gets hijacked and it just
Right.
goes to Israel. So like, it's just been such an unsuccessful. I mean, technically, we're. It, I think again, I think it makes sense that she did what she did, but I think that the stronger campaign strategy, at least to get the left and the center left to vote for her, would have been to take a harder stance and say, we're on the side of Palestine. That being said,
Yeah.
I don't think it makes sense just because the US is so pro Israel.
Yeah. Um, I pretty much agree with what you said. I think, yeah, I think sorry, Nora, could you just ask me the question one more time?
Yeah, so just like in debates and on the campaign
Mhm.
trail, Kamala kind of focused on just talking about like a ceasefire, pushing for
Yeah.
that, and then like a two-state solution. Do you think that that was enough, or she should have gone farther?
Yeah, yeah. So going back to then what you said, Ellie, I definitely think that she could have pushed farther because like she had people begging her to push farther. Like I know at my school specifically, we protested her coming. Like it was supposed to be a hush hush event, but everyone found out she was coming. And so they had to move her and like they weren't letting her on campus because we have a lot of pro-Palestine organizations here and they wanted her to take a more defined stance, which I agree. I think what she did was the bare minimum. I think she did what she thought could try to like appeal to both sides. Whereas in reality, I think what the people wanted was to just have someone finally be like, okay, no, this is absolutely atrocious. Like, this has gone on way too far. Like, I think most people wanted someone to put their foot down and be like, no, this is not okay. Because at the end of the day, I feel like if no one does, we will just see more and more conflict.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's also really difficult because I don't like the way that Israel has acted. However, I understand that it is an incredibly nuanced, centuries old conflict. And I almost wonder if Kamala didn't want to speak too much on it just by virtue of not knowing enough about it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. It's probably that probably is what it came down to. But then it's also like, I feel like, as a person who is going to be running for the president of the country, and you are asked about these issues, I mean, if it was me, I would feel morally obligated to start really researching and looking into them. So I think at the end of the day, she should have just done more research and knowledge on the subjects that were important to the people. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, I think not only as a current active conflict, the Israel-Palestine conflict, but also as the commander in chief, the leader of the
mhm,
executive branch, the head of
exactly.
the military, like this should have been top
Yeah.
priority. I feel like Nora said, kind of in debates, she really didn't focus on it. She focused a lot on like helping the middle class, which is cool. But I
Mhm.
feel like I rarely heard about her talking about this.
Yeah.
Right, like, and you have in the vice presidential debate, I think it was like the first question that they were asked, and like both JD Vance and Tim Walz just kind of like gave a just like a kind of
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of a hollow answer. So I totally, yeah, see what you both are getting at. Then to switch gears a little bit. Um, so like a big part of, at least here in the US, a big part of the conversation has been kind of like where your money goes and thinking about like if that's going to Israel, a cause that a lot of people or a country in the conflict don't really agree with. So then my question to you guys would be, considering that, do boycotts targeted at certain companies such as Starbucks, McDonald's, there are others, but those I'd say are the main two, help or hinder the effort to fight against Israel's role in the conflict? And personally, have you guys participated in these boycotts at all? And what was your rationale for doing so?
Yeah, so I think this might be a point that Katie and I disagree on, but I would love to hear an opposite point of view. I think that, I mean, when I think of a boycott, I think of the origins of a boycott. I think of Martin Luther King Jr. Getting a bunch of Black citizens to boycott the entire transportation system, the bus system, um, to make a change because Black people had to be sat in the back, and if they didn't, then they would be removed from the bus and stuff like that. So it wasn't a company; it was actually an entire kind of institution. And I think that that's why that worked so well. It was an organized effort. It was one thing, you know, walk to class, walk to school, don't take the bus. Um, and I think that's why it was so effective. Whereas I feel like when we see these Israel Palestine, specifically anti-Israel, um, what is it called, boycotts on like Stranger Things, because no, okay, because, because Noah Schnapp is a Zionist or something along those lines, or McDonald's is sending food to Israeli soldiers, or Starbucks is um, pro pro Israel, or took down some kind of a tweet that was made that was pro Palestine. I think that all of those are being done in good faith. I don't think they're effective. I don't think they're well organized enough. I think they rely a lot on the internet to spread the message, but there's so many different sides of the internet that I don't think the message is broad enough or appealable enough to reach all the corners of the internet and really make as big of an impact as they're doing. Also, um, there's a lot of misinformation, I think, about the boycotts. I mean, there's a lot of debate about, well, which companies are actually sending money to Israel and how much of this is actually true. And I think that that just fosters, I don't know what's happening in my game, fosters a lot of distrust. I think it needs to be more organized. I think it needs to focus on one big thing as opposed to a bunch of little companies. But I think I understand the intention, and I think it's in good faith.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not, to be quite honest, I'm not a big money person. So like I'll just be totally frank. I don't understand how money works and where people send their money. And it's what they want to do with their money is what they want to do. I personally just I understand and I definitely get what you're saying. I actually agree kind of with a lot of points you're saying. I definitely understand why you feel it's more disorganized because it's trying to be spread on like social media and everything. And obviously, not everyone's on social media, not everyone's on the side of social media you're on. And it's like, so it's like definitely hard to get things spread out. And obviously, with the internet comes scandal and after like misinformation after misinformation because that's the internet. But I think when people do want to do this and like do their research and are actually like looking into the things like using reputable sources and like statistics and like can like factually say like okay, yeah, this company doesn't support Palestine or is sending money to Israel to harm people, yeah, then I can definitely be like, yeah, I don't want to support them. um I have, I mean, obviously, I don't really like Starbucks anyway, so I don't go to Starbucks. But like, I definitely like have tried to like do my research, and like ones I know for sure have been like gotten multiple like accusations or have been found to have money. Then I definitely have been like not wanting to support or go there. But at the same time, I just try and kind of do what I can, and I try to counteract that by buying more from Palestinian businesses and stuff like that. So that's kind of where I'll just not put my money into those kind of products. I'll just support Palestinian products.
Yeah, I
That.
definitely don't think it does any harm to do that at all.
Mhm.
I don't, I think people put a lot of their eggs in that basket and think, well, if we don't give money to these corporations or companies, then it'll have an effect on the war. And I think the really
Mhm.
sad fact is that there's conflicts in the world that we just don't have any effect on.
Yeah.
I think part of the American idea is like we want to interfere, we want to help, we have all this power, privilege, money, we
Mhm.
want to help. I think I think what you're doing, standing by your beliefs and not buying from companies you don't want to support, I think that's a great thing.
Yeah, and it's like I also am like I'm not someone who like condemns people for like going to these like places and everything because I get it. Sometimes like McDonald's is cheap. McDonald's is cheap. I go to McDonald's. I'm a broke college student. Sometimes that's all I can afford. Do I like it? No. But it's just it just happens. But I think when you are doing more good for the cause than bad, I think that kind of tends to outweigh it. And yeah, like you were saying, like I'm gonna be honest, unfortunately, a lot of their money is coming from just the government itself. Like a lot of it isn't just, and it's like higher up corporations and like stuff we can't even touch. So like I definitely understand what you're saying because like unfortunately, even if we were to like boycott like thousands of businesses, they would still be getting money from the government. They would still be getting our money. So
Hmm.
it's a top down problem, like the top.
For
So
sure.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's we put a lot of the blame on ourselves because we kind of feel like, I'm just sitting here doing nothing.
Mhm.
Um, when in reality, I think that when you're in the position we are, when we're college kids trying to figure out what we want to do and what we like, it's just not always reasonable to expect somebody to avoid convenience for the sake of politics.
And like I do like it's hard because like I do understand like why people are upset and like I do understand why it has become like a significant issue because I think people are trying to like define the difference between like morally and politically. And I think that's just a problem a lot with just like this election and just a lot of events going on right now. It's how do we define a political aspect and like a moral aspect and how they coincide or don't go together. It's just, I think it's a very interesting time in politics we're seeing. Also, a very confusing time, if that
For
makes
sure.
sense.
And if I could just add to that too, like I think social media and having this all happen
Mhm.
online is a big factor in that and just making it more complicated. And kind of what you were getting at, Katie, with maybe attacking people online if they're not boycotting certain businesses. Yeah, like you definitely see that a lot more just with the world that we live in now. And
Yeah.
then, kind of on that same topic, also, I think I have like 4 minutes left to record, but we're having a really good discussion, so we'll probably just split this into two parts. Um, you kind of brought this up, Ellie, with like celebrities and some people wanting to protest like Stranger Things because of Noah Schnapp. And sort of in that vein, what role do celebrities play in supporting either side of this conflict? And is it right to ask celebrities to get involved and use their platforms, or do you think it makes no real difference? And have you personally stopped supporting a celebrity because of their stance on the conflict?
Um, I have not stopped supporting any celebrities because of their stance. I think that your stance on Israel Palestine, especially if you're Jewish or Palestinian, is going to have a lot to do with the people around you and the way that you're raised. I'm not going to knock you for maybe not having the same opinion as me because you're Jewish or Palestinian. Um, I do think it is a little bit I don't want to say silly. I think it is a little bit futile to expect certain celebrities to use their platform to speak up about the Israel Palestine situation. If they want to do that, I think that that's awesome. I think that's a really great thing. I think more people should be involved in politics, and I will absolutely commend someone for speaking out on a big platform about what they believe in. Um, I don't think you should get mad at someone for not speaking out. I think there was a really big movement like 2020 about like people posting like black squares on Instagram. And if anyone posted anything else, I saw people like commenting like we're doing a blackout for George Floyd and if you post any pictures then you're being insensitive or racist or something like that. And I think this kind of goes in the same vein where I saw someone like getting mad at like Tana Mojo, who I don't if the professor probably doesn't know who that is. She's like a YouTuber. She's like she's just like she's just a YouTuber. Like she's
Yeah.
just a YouTuber. People getting mad at her for not platforming the issue. I think that that's a little bit. I think the anger is misplaced there. I think you shouldn't be angry at the person. I think you should be angry at the situation. And if people are speaking up, that's great. And if they're not, it's kind of their decision.
Yeah. I mean, I think I agree for the most part, but I personally I like to surround myself with people who have similar morals as me and who like I politically or morally align with. So for me personally, it was just I didn't really need or really want to see any non or hateful rhetoric towards Palestinians or even anti-Semitic behavior. I just personally didn't really want to see that. So if certain celebrities were spewing that or, blatantly fully disregarding the Palestinian issue, then yeah, I definitely wasn't putting my full support to them. But that's also because a lot of these celebrities have done a lot of other negative crap that I don't agree with at all. So it's not just a one-sided issue that I've decided to not support certain celebrities. It's a lot of reasons, but at the end of the day, I think the problem is people idolize celebrities too much, and we kind of paint them out to be these big people that we know personally when we have no idea who these people are. They're just somehow famous for being somewhat talented. But at the end of the day, you're right. If they speak up or they choose not to, that's their decision. I mean, obviously, for people, it can show where they stand politically, but then you just accept that. You don't have to continue to post things or continue to bash people online. Just accept it and go your own way. I think the easiest thing you can do is just block or unfollow. Then you don't have to see, you don't have to associate. You can just, and if that's your choice, you can just do that. I mean, I do think when people, unfortunately, in a celebrity situation and do have a higher position, do speak out, I do think it unfortunately influences what people think because, again,